You're running, on the verge of passing out from immense heat and dehydration. You see a half-awake guy talking to a tree, but you could just be hallucinating from all the rat poison you drank earlier, so you keep on running. Or more accurately, barely moving your sweat-drenched, calloused feet one by one. You move another few meters. Another sunburned guy is laying in the middle of your dusty road. For a moment you consider helping him, but ultimately decide that if you want to win this, you have to conserve your energy. You keep going. Suddenly you lift your head and see a donkey sprinting at you full speed. Could just be another hallucination, but not trying to risk it, you quickly gather the remaining energy to jump out of the way. Dizzy and barely conscious, you finish the race. This was the men's marathon at the 1904 Summer Olympics in St. Louis, Missouri. And maybe the exact situation wasn't exactly how I described it, but it for sure was the craziest marathon in known history. It took place on August 30th of that year. The race was run over a distance of 28.85 miles in 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 32 degrees Celsius with minimal water supply on dusty country roads that, to say the least, weren't prepared for a marathon. Oh, and fun fact, the marathon included the first two black Africans to compete in the Olympics. Two Tswana men named Lentonyana and Jan Mashiane, who were in St. Louis as a part of the South African exhibit at the 1904 World's Fair. They ran the marathon. Oh, and do you know what their training was? They would wake up in the middle of the night every day and run 10 miles with pockets full of rocks. Just kidding, they were just black. They had also served as long-distance message runners during the then-recent Boer War. And to add to the coolness of the situation, sources claim that they both fled barefoot, although the photos at the scene show Mashiane wearing shoes. The start included 5 laps around the stadium track. The rest of the course was on dusty country roads, while race officials riding in vehicles ahead of and behind the runners. This resulted in brutal dust clouds, which made the already extremely hot and muggy circumstances worse. The organizers either didn't care, forgot, or purposefully didn't clear the roads of obstacles, and its quality was really inadequate. The runners had to constantly dodge all sorts of stuff. Crosstown traffic, delivery wagons, railroad trains, trolley cars, and people walking their dogs. And the finish line was back at the stadium. And the guys participating, boy oh boy, had some interesting character developments both during, before, and after the race. During the race, John Lorden, who had won the 1903 Boston Marathon, was violently ill after 10 miles and retired, while Sam Miller, who had won the 1902 Boston Marathon, lost the war with dust. Despite leading the field at the halfway mark, Miller dropped out of the race after 16 miles. Another near fatality during the event was William Garcia of the United States. He was found lying on the road along the marathon course with severe internal injuries caused again by breathing in the same good old clouds of dust kicked up by the race officials' cars. The first to arrive at the finish line after 3 hours and 13 minutes of straight-up war was Fred Lords. After being hailed as the winner, Bro even scored a photo with Alice Roosevelt, daughter of then U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, and was about to be awarded the gold medal when his deception was revealed. What was it? Oh, just him using the car to cheat about 10 miles. Apparently, Lords suffered bad cramps and decided to drop out of the race at about mile 9. So when he was being driven back to the stadium, since the stadium was also the finish, the car very conveniently broke down at mile 19th. Lords was like, you know what, the cramps aren't that bad after all, and continued on his way to finish the race. And hear me out, once the officials confronted him, he really pulled the old YouTube prankster, it's just a joke bro, so he got the permaban, although later it was reduced to a year. Thomas Hicks ended up the winner of the event, but I wouldn't be making this video if without any shenanigans. The guy was high. Like really high. 10 miles from the finish, Hicks led the race by 1.5 miles. But man, did Hicks felt like a pile of bricks. So his trainers hooked him up with a little sum. From then until the end of the race, Hicks received several doses of strychnine, a common rat poison which stimulates the nervous system in small doses, mixed with brandy and egg white. But it mostly just made him horribly hallucinate. Barely being able to walk, his body finished the race. Why just the body? Well, because when he reached the stadium, his support team carried him over the line, holding him in the air while he shuffled his feet as if still running. Now, whether it was just muscle memory tweaking or he really did think he was still racing due to rat poison or something, losing doesn't really matter. Although he did lose about 8 pounds during the marathon and he had to be extensively treated by doctors to avoid death, he still won because that thing he drank wasn't yet illegal. But wait, that's not all. Cuban postman Anderin Carvajal, who gets a few additional respect points for awesome mustache, also joined the marathon, arriving at the last minute. After losing all of his money gambling in New Orleans, he hitchhiked to St. Louis and had to run the event in street clothes that he cut around the legs to make them into shorts. Not having eaten in 40 hours, he saw a spectator eating 2 peaches. He asked if he could have the peaches, but the spectator declined. He then proceeded to steal the peaches and run away. Later, he stopped to eat some apples, which turned out to be rotten. The rotten apples caused him to have severe stomach cramps, so he had to lie down and take a nap. And despite all the cramps and the sleep break, Carvajal still somehow managed to finish in 4th place. Oh, and to paint a better picture of the awfulness of the conditions, the only 2 sources of water for the competitors were a water tower at 6 miles and a well at about 12-mile mark. James E. Sullivan was the chief organizer of the Olympics and set up no other water sources along the almost 25-mile course of the marathon, even though it was conducted in 32 degrees Celsius heat over unpaved roads choked with dust. And his apparent reason was to, quote, research purposeful dehydration. Sure, James, how about you tell that to Hicks? Anyways, the marathon ended with the worst ratio of entrants to finishers, 14 of 32, and by far the slowest winning time, 3 hours, 28 minutes and 45 seconds, almost 30 minutes slower than the second slowest winning time. So today's lesson is, if you organize a marathon, make sure to ask yourself, am I making an actual marathon or a death trap? Thank you for watching.